My name is Susan Boyle. I'm from Blackburn, which is near Bathgate in West Lothian, Scotland. Blackburn is a fairly large town made up of several small villages. I grew up there in a close but struggling family. But behind my quiet voice and shy smile, I was carrying deep emotional scars that few people knew about. In 2022, I disappeared from the public eye for 2 whole years. People wondered where I went. Some even feared the worst. But what really happened during that time was something I've never fully shared until now. My life has never been simple. I faced troubles from the very beginning. I was born on April 1, 1961, at Bangour Village Hospital in West Lothian. My mother, Bridget, was 47 when she gave birth to me. That was considered quite dangerous back then. Doctors warned that continuing the pregnancy might put both of our lives at risk. But my mother, who was a devout Catholic, refused to even consider ending it. She believed I was a gift from God. I was the 9th and youngest child in a large, working-class family. We didn't have much. Our home in Blackburn was small and overcrowded. Life was hard. Adding another baby made it even harder. My arrival came with complications too. My mother suffered from preeclampsia during labor. Because of that, I was deprived of oxygen for a short time during birth. Doctors said I had mild brain damage, and that label followed me for most of my life. At school, I found it difficult to keep up. I struggled with learning and didn't understand things as quickly as others. Teachers didn't know how to help me. Instead, they punished me. And classmates weren't kind either. They bullied me relentlessly. They called me names like Susie Simple and Touchy because of my epilepsy and because I would faint without warning. Those moments made me feel ashamed and isolated. I was treated like I didn't belong, like I was broken. Even at home, I didn't feel safe. My father, Patrick, had served in World War II. He came back from the war a different man, angry, disturbed, and emotionally unstable. The trauma he carried affected all of us, but especially me. I often became the target of his outbursts. He hit me, yelled at me, and made me feel worthless. Still, I loved him. I believed he was fighting battles in his mind that none of us could see. But his anger and the fear it caused shaped the way I saw myself. I started to believe I wasn't good enough and that I wasn't meant to be loved. Despite all this, I developed a kind of quiet strength. I carried on. I found small moments of happiness in singing. Music became my escape. I would sing in the house, in local choirs, and sometimes at the church. But my confidence was very low. I always thought people were judging me. That feeling stayed with me for most of my life. Everyone believed I had brain damage, including me. But that turned out to be wrong. In 2012, I saw a specialist who finally gave me some clarity. I was diagnosed with Asperger syndrome, a form of autism. I wasn't damaged at all. In fact, my IQ was above average. All those years I spent thinking I wasn't smart or capable were based on a mistake. That diagnosis helped me understand myself in a new way. It gave me peace. I realized I wasn't broken, I was just different. When I was 25, I fell in love for the first time. But I never got the chance to experience what love felt like. My father didn't approve. One day, the man I was seeing called the house. My father answered and told him I didn't want to speak to him anymore. He never told me about the call. I didn't even know what happened until much later. The man eventually had a child with someone else. I was heartbroken. That betrayal made it hard for me to trust anyone again. While my siblings moved out and built their own lives, I stayed at home. I became the caregiver for my parents. After my father died in the 1990s, I stayed to take care of my mother. She was aging and fragile. I cooked, cleaned, and kept her company. Taking care of her became my full-time job. I gave up my own dreams so she could be comfortable. I rarely saw friends. I didn't travel. My world became small. But my mother always believed in me. She told me I had a gift and that I shouldn't give up on singing. In 1995, I tried something bold. I auditioned for a TV show called My Kind of People. I had sung in local pubs and churches, but this was my first real shot at something big. I was nervous, so nervous that my hands shook and I could barely sing. I didn't make it on the show. I was crushed, but I didn't stop singing. I kept going, singing in small places and at church, even if no one else saw it. In 1999, I recorded a version of Cry Me a River for a charity CD. Only 1,000 copies were made, and the local newspaper praised my voice. They said my performance was full of emotion. But almost no one outside my town heard it. The world wouldn't discover my voice for another 10 years. In the same year, I took all the money I had and paid to record a demo tape. I sang Cry Me a River and Killing Me Softly. I mailed copies to record labels and TV shows across the UK, hoping someone would listen. No one responded. My tapes disappeared. I felt like I had been ignored again, like no one wanted to give me a chance. Then in 2000, my whole world collapsed. My sister Kathleen, who was my biggest supporter, died suddenly. Her death devastated me. She had always encouraged me to sing. Without her, I lost the will to go on. I couldn't sing anymore. I didn't attend choir. I stopped practicing. I avoided anything that reminded me of music. For 2 years, I didn't perform at all. The sadness was too heavy. I felt like I had lost not only my sister, but the one person who believed in me no matter what. Eventually, I began singing again. But my focus was now on taking care of my mother. She was in her late 80s and needed me constantly. I built my life around her. She became my reason to get up every day. She encouraged me to keep singing. She reminded me of my promise that I would never give up on my dream. In October 2007, my mother passed away at the age of 91. Her death shattered me. I lost my best friend, my only companion. After she died, I fell into deep grief. I stopped singing again. I didn't want to see anyone. For almost 2 years, I stayed inside the house. I didn't go to church. I didn't visit friends. My house, once full of warmth, became cold and empty. I only had my cat, Pebbles, to keep me company. But I had made a promise to my mother before she died. I told her I would audition for Britain's Got Talent. In late 2008, I decided to honor that promise. I filled out the form and went to Glasgow for the audition. I was scared and full of doubt. I was 47 years old, unemployed, and had never sung on a big stage before. But I told myself that I had nothing to lose. On April 11, 2009, I walked onto the stage at Clyde Auditorium in Glasgow. The room was full of people. I wore a simple gold dress. My hair was messy. People in the audience looked at me and laughed. The judges, Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, and Piers Morgan, seemed unimpressed. When I said I wanted to be as famous as Elaine Paige, they rolled their eyes. You could feel that no one believed in me. Then I started singing I Dreamed a Dream from Les Miserables, and everything changed. The room fell silent. Simon's eyes widened. Amanda stared in shock. Piers smiled in disbelief. The audience rose to their feet, cheering. The applause was so loud that it felt like the room was shaking. I had stunned everyone. My voice touched something deep inside people. It was like all the pain and emotion I had carried for so long had finally been released. That performance went viral. By the next morning, the video was everywhere. In just 1 week, more than 100 million people had seen it on YouTube. News outlets from all over the world covered the story. Susan Boyle, a woman from a small town in Scotland, had become a global sensation overnight. Amanda Holden later said, "I think we were all being very cynical. That's the biggest wake-up call ever." Her words were shared around the world. People realized they had judged me unfairly because of how I looked. My story reminded them that talent doesn't come with a perfect face or a glamorous life. Real talent can come from anywhere. After that, my life changed completely. Celebrities like Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher tweeted about me. I became the top trending topic on Twitter. I appeared on talk shows and was invited to the Oprah Winfrey Show. My church in Blackburn became a tourist spot. People from countries like Japan came to see where I had sung. I had gone from being invisible to being seen by the whole world. In the semifinals, I sang Memory from Cats. The audience loved it. Amanda Holden called it spellbinding. I got the most votes that night. Everyone thought I would win the final. But when the votes were counted, I came in second. The dance group Diversity won. I congratulated them with grace. I said, the best people won. I wish them all the best. But inside, I was heartbroken. I had given everything. After the final, I broke down. I shouted, cried, and fainted. I was rushed to the Priory Clinic in London, a place where celebrities go to recover. Doctors said I was exhausted and emotionally overwhelmed. I had gone from being completely unknown to being under intense global pressure, and it had taken its toll. The media was relentless. Some reporters followed me, hounded my family, and even tried to trick me with fake marriage proposals. The Press Complaints Commission had to step in. They told journalists to stop invading my privacy. My story became a lesson about the dangers of sudden fame and how we treat people who are vulnerable. And then came the family problems. I had always been generous. I gave away £1.8 million to my relatives, hoping it would bring us closer. But it didn't. Some of them started fighting over money. One of my brothers even threatened me. I felt alone again. I realized that even after everything, some wounds were still open. So I stepped away from the spotlight for 2 years. I needed time to heal. I needed to understand who I was beyond the fame. Now, at 64, I've finally returned. I'm stronger. I've faced pain, betrayal, and loneliness. But I've also seen kindness, love, and hope. And most importantly, I've learned to believe in myself. Because dreams don't have an expiration date. And no matter how hard life gets, it's never too late to rise. It all began as a moment of excitement, a dream come true, but it quickly turned into something much darker. Susan Boyle's sudden rise to fame showed how harsh and dangerous press attention could be. Behind the scenes, even Simon Cowell, who had helped launch her career, realized things had gone too far. For the first time in his career, he offered to cancel a contestant's contract. He told Susan's family that if she wanted out, he would completely tear up the deal. He made it clear that no one would force her into the recording studio. He said he would support whatever Susan wanted. In the world of reality TV, that kind of compassion and flexibility was extremely rare. Most contestants were under strict contracts and had to follow through with everything: tours, appearances, interviews. But Simon knew this was different. He later admitted that this was one of the most difficult weeks of his life. He said he was willing to take responsibility for what happened and admitted he had made mistakes. His decision changed the way many in the entertainment industry thought about how they treated the people who made their shows successful. Everyone thought Susan would need a long time to recover and might stay in the clinic for weeks, even months. But on June 4, 2009, just 3 days after entering the clinic, she left. To everyone's surprise, she announced she would join the Britain's Got Talent tour. The news shocked the public, especially because her recovery had seemed so unlikely. Later, Susan shared what it felt like inside the clinic. She said it was frightening. There were no phone calls, no television, and she felt totally isolated. For 2 days, she questioned everything: who she was, what she wanted, and whether she could go on. But eventually, she realized she was simply exhausted and needed rest, not retreat. Her choice to return wasn't just a sign of recovery, it showed her incredible inner strength. Her family and her fans stood with her, ready to support her every step of the way. Susan didn't just return quietly. She came back stronger than ever and amazed audiences on stage. Out of 24 tour dates, she performed in 20. She traveled to cities like Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Dublin, Sheffield, Coventry, and Birmingham. In every city, the crowds rose to their feet. She received standing ovations everywhere she went. Reporters who once doubted her were now calling her a natural, saying she performed like someone with years of experience. The tour was more than just a series of shows, it was a triumph, both for Susan and the many people who had believed in her. Susan Boyle's sudden fame felt like something out of a fairy tale. Her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream, was released on November 23, 2009. What happened next stunned the music industry. In just 1 week, she sold over 400,000 copies in the UK, breaking the record previously held by Leona Lewis. She didn't just sell more albums than her competition, she outsold the entire top 5 in the UK charts combined. In the US, she sold over 700,000 copies during her first week, making it the biggest debut for a solo female artist since tracking began in 1991. Around the world, over 2 million albums were sold in that first week. By the end of 2009, Susan had sold more than 10 million records globally. She sold more records that year than artists like Eminem, Rihanna, or Lady Gaga. The demand was so huge that Amazon called it the most pre-ordered album in their history. Some stores couldn't even keep it on the shelves long enough for people to buy. This unbelievable success came just months after Susan had been an unknown woman from a small Scottish town, volunteering at her local church. But her story didn't end with one great album. In less than 2 years, she became the first woman in UK history to have 3 consecutive albums debut at number 1. After I Dreamed a Dream in 2009 came The Gift in 2010 and Someone to Watch Over Me in 2011. All of them went straight to the top of the charts. Only legendary bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones had ever done something like that. Susan did it at age 48, with no previous fame, no years of training from the industry, and no fancy image makeover. The Gift was especially remarkable. It topped charts in both the UK and the US at the same time, making Susan the first female artist ever to achieve that. Her success showed that raw talent could break every industry rule. The money that followed her fame was just as astonishing. In her first year, she earned around $5 million, which today would be worth about $8.5 million. Before all of this, she lived in council housing in Blackburn, West Lothian, surviving on disability benefits. By the end of 2009, her debut album alone had made over $9.5 million in sales. Her net worth quickly rose to between $35 and $40 million. People across the world were fascinated by how someone so ordinary, so grounded, became one of the highest-paid music stars in the world in a single year. In 2012, Susan had one of the proudest moments of her life. On May 13, she performed Mull of Kintyre at Windsor Castle during Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee celebration. She was accompanied by the pipes and drums of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards. Millions watched it live on television. It was hard to believe that just 3 years earlier, she had been auditioning nervously for Britain's Got Talent. Now she was performing for the Queen. The crowd's applause was thunderous. After the performance, she even met the Queen face to face. For many, it was the ultimate sign that Susan Boyle had become a national treasure. By 2021, Susan had sold over 25 million albums worldwide. Her first album alone had reached 10 million, but even her later releases continued to sell in large numbers. Her albums were certified multi-platinum in countries like the US, UK, Australia, Japan, and New Zealand. I Dreamed a Dream went 4x platinum in the US and 7x platinum in the UK. She had outsold many popular stars who had been in the business much longer than she had. And all of this happened without a big record label investing in her before her breakthrough. But while the world saw her success, few knew the pain behind it. Susan's sudden wealth and fame caused deep problems in her family. In June 2010, she tried to bring everyone together to talk about the money she had shared with them. She hoped the meeting would heal old wounds, but not everyone came. Their absence only made things worse, dividing the family into 2 camps. Susan felt stuck in the middle and blamed herself for the arguments. She once told her brother Jerry, "I'm the bad one. It's all my fault." Then things took an even darker turn in 2013. It was reported that Jerry had threatened to end his life unless Susan gave him $50,000 to save his business. Feeling desperate, she gave him the money. At the time, she was also very sick with a virus and tonsillitis. Jerry later denied making the threats, but the damage had already been done. Susan then told her relatives that Jerry had blackmailed her. When Jerry confronted her about the lie, she broke down and admitted she made it up. She had done it because she wanted to stop the fighting. Instead, it only made the family rift deeper. The breaking point came in 2015 when Susan gave a generous cash gift to another relative. When they didn't thank her, she became hurt and tried to reach out. Her messages were misunderstood, and the police became involved. They visited her and told her to stop contacting that person. The whole incident showed just how much stress Susan was under from her fame and her personal life. Over the years, she had given around $1.8 million to family members. In 2010 alone, she gave $55,000 each to her siblings, and another $55,000 to her nephew Alan for a business that never worked out. She gave $45,000 to another niece to start a photography business. She helped family members with maternity costs and even gave them jobs. Her niece Kirsty was given 5% of profits from Susan's first 2 albums. But instead of bringing the family closer, the money only created more distance. Susan's life took another surprising turn in December 2013 when she learned something that changed how she saw herself. At 52 years old, she discovered she had Asperger's syndrome. For her entire life, she had believed she had a learning disability. Doctors at her birth had told her she was brain damaged due to complications. But after years of confusion, bullying, and struggle, the truth finally came out. She had a form of autism, not brain damage. It explained why social situations had always been so difficult for her. She grew up in a working-class home in Scotland, and for most of her life, she felt out of place. When she finally got the right diagnosis, she felt relieved. Even better, she found out her IQ was actually above average. This new understanding gave her confidence. It helped her speak up for others who faced the same struggles. The diagnosis came late, but it helped her accept herself fully for the first time. A year before that, in 2012, another health problem appeared. Susan was at the peak of her career when doctors told her she had type 2 diabetes. The diagnosis was serious. She had to change her lifestyle completely or risk losing her voice and possibly her life. She stopped eating sugary treats, gave up cakes, and started eating healthy foods. She also began exercising regularly. By 2016, she had lost 28 pounds. By 2018, that total had grown to 50 pounds. When COVID-19 appeared, the danger became even more real. Her doctors warned her that even a small infection could be deadly. So she isolated herself completely, taking no chances. From that moment on, she had to carefully manage her health every single day. But even with these challenges, she never stopped sharing her music with the world. Then something unexpected happened in 2014. For the first time in her life, Susan experienced love. She was 53 years old and on tour in the United States when she met a doctor in Florida. He wasn't a fan, just someone who recognized her and struck up a conversation. They had lunch the next day. Susan said he was a true gentleman. He paid for their meal and kissed her sweetly on the cheek. That simple lunch meant everything to her. At one point in her life, Susan had admitted she had never even been kissed. The doctor's name was kept private, and her team was briefly worried when she disappeared to spend time with him. But she was safe. That quiet afternoon reminded her that it was never too late to find happiness, even after years of loneliness. Despite earning millions, Susan never changed who she was. She remained simple and grounded. Even after earning around $22 million through albums and tours, she lived in the same modest house where she grew up. She had bought the house for $65,000 and later bought the one next door for $111,000 to have more room. Her personal spending was very limited. She gave herself just $300 to $500 a week. She did her own grocery shopping and avoided fancy things. Her biggest luxuries were a fur coat, a piano, and a bicycle that she hardly used. She once said money was like water in a desert, it could disappear fast. So she focused on smart choices, like property and music, instead of wasting it. In April 2022, Susan suffered a stroke. It was a terrifying time. The stroke nearly stole her ability to speak and sing. For more than a year, she fought to get better. It was a hard road, but she was determined to sing again. On June 4, 2023, she achieved what many thought impossible. She stepped onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent and sang I Dreamed a Dream once more. The audience stood up. Many were in tears. Simon Cowell said it was the most moving performance he had ever witnessed. Susan had done it. She had come back from the darkest place. Her recovery was long and difficult. For nearly 3 years, She worked harder than ever. She had daily speech therapy, countless hours of vocal exercises, and physical training to rebuild the strength on her left side. She worked with vocal coaches who had trained opera and Broadway singers. She marked every small victory, the day she held a note for 10 seconds, the day she could sing a whole verse. By early 2025, after more than 1,000 hours of work, Susan had recovered 90% of her voice. Doctors called it nothing short of a miracle. Then, on her 64th birthday in April 2025, Susan returned to social media. After 2 years of silence, she posted a short but powerful message: "I'm back. Definitely back. Thank you for waiting." Her message received 500,000 likes and more than 50,000 comments. She shared exciting news, new music, a documentary, a charity single, and live performances. She posted clips from her recovery journey, showing her early vocal exercises and joyful reunions with her team. It wasn't just a comeback. It was a message of hope. Susan Boyle wasn't finished. She was ready to inspire the world once again.